My name's Alexandra and I'm from California. I first came to Portugal about 6 years ago for a backpacking trip in the summer, and I fell in love with the country. And when my son was born in 2020, I knew that I wanted to relocate to live in Portugal with my family. I work as a private chef in Portugal, cooking Mediterranean and Middle Eastern inspired food. I wanted to be a writer when I was a child, which is what I was doing when I first moved here. But I quickly realized that I wanted to be more active in the community and I wanted to get to know more people in Lisbon, and cooking was a great way to travel and to immerse myself. So the first year I moved to Portugal, I lived in Lapa, which is a neighborhood in Lisbon, and I really loved it. I had a great time in Lisbon, but as my son was quickly growing out of our apartment, I was hoping to find a neighborhood with more space, access to the beach, beautiful parks, and that's what you find in Oeiras. One of the biggest challenges that I considered before moving here was if I was going to enroll my child in the public school system or go with international schools. And previously, when I had lived in Turkey, I worked in the private school system, so I was familiar with how international schools work. But once I got to Lisbon and I saw the neighborhood that I live in now, I was really comfortable to put him in a public school. A day in my life in Portugal looks like getting my son to school, walking around the neighborhood, grabbing a cup of coffee, sitting down, planning what I'm going to do for my business that day, and then either I'm doing client visits, client calls, going into Lisbon to do some private work, picking my son up from school, going to the beach, going to the park. It's a lot of time outside. And then weekends are always socializing with friends or going to Sintra, which is about a 25-minute drive from my house, having a hike, having a picnic, making sure that we have a lot of contact with nature throughout the week. Of all the countries that I've lived in, this is my fourth being a resident, and I have never met such a welcoming social circle as I have in Lisbon. I think one of the things that makes it so attractive here is there are so many expats coming who are not only investing in 1 or 2 years here, but really building their lives, buying property, putting their kids into the local schools. And that interest in the country creates an interest in building community. My friends are so curious about what it's like to live in Portugal. They're always asking my partner and I for advice of how they can relocate, what can they do, what was the process like for us. And we have had a steady stream of visitors since we moved 3 years ago. Our house is quite a place of a rotating door for guests. And my parents love it. My parents have come about 5 times in 2 years. So I think Portugal is attractive to most people. I would suggest to anybody who wants to restart their life in another country that they give it a half-a-year chance. And whether that's possible through renting your home in America and coming here, or renting your flat in another country. But I think it's best to test drive the country first and make sure this is really what you imagined. It's more than the photos you see. It's more than the articles that are in travel magazines. Really understand what it will be like to be in this community, to be in this culture, to be in a foreign language, and feel if you're comfortable with that move.